So what that has to do with, Mark, is the subject of Forever Young is you have to be young to play that fast. Thank you. It's so much fun to enjoy and celebrate creative brilliance. So the title of my talk today is Forever Young. Have you ever done something, chosen something, and then asked yourself, what the heck was I thinking? That's what I thought when I saw the title of this talk. As I choose my talks a couple of months in advance. Why Forever Young? Perhaps I was feeling old that day, having reached the advanced age of 68, and coming up on 10 years of service here as pastor. Maybe I was feeling tired. Maybe I was feeling burnt out a bit, in need of a break in the action. And into my mind came the words, forever young. As in that big truth, the big truth, that spirit, the source of our life, is ageless, timeless, eternal. It never tires of expressing its eternal youthfulness. As spring, as new beauty, new energy, fertility, new livingness. Every year, no matter how harsh the winter may have been, no matter how bare the trees, no matter how brown the grass, spring comes and revives everything. It renews everything. It reinvigorates and re-beautifies everything. As if birth was continually possible. I've asked myself, when I was preparing for this talk, what are the qualities of youthfulness that I need to embrace to feel young, and if possible, forever young? We are made of divine material. Therefore, we must have within us the capacity for renewal. Just as that infinite life force renews the earth every spring, so there is something within us that is constantly being renewed. In fact, scientists tell us that every cell of our body, every cell is replaced within, I can't remember if it's a year or 7 years. 7 years. Okay, good. I like to be correct in these things. Then why do we age? If every cell in our body is renewed every 7 years, it's like being born again every 7 years. There is a theory that we age because we see other people age. And this theory is actually ancient. It's a very interesting theory. It was born in India. Shankar was a very brilliant sage in India. And what he said was, one of the main things that we do is enclose ourselves in the prison of time and space, squeezing our experience into the span of a lifetime and the volume of a body. It is because of this self-imposed limitation that all our conflicts arise, and life and death and pain and pleasure and hope and fear. To end these problems, you must first end the illusion of time. And when his disciples asked him how to do that, he replied, "You are caught in this world like a fish in a net. But all nets have holes. Find one, escape through it, and you will see what reality actually is." So Shankara, who towers over the whole tradition of India, said, people grow old and die because they see other people grow old and die. So, if our cells are replaced every 7 years, why do we grow old and die? There's a study that I found in this book, very fascinating study. There was a lady by the name of Professor Lanker, and she decided to do a study. She's a gerontologist that was from Harvard's psychology department. Her name is Professor Ellen Langer, and she set out to investigate what if aging could be reversed. Most people believe that the things of aging, bone shrinkage, etc., could not be undone. But she suspected that the mind had the power to undo certain effects of aging. So to test this possibility, she placed an ad in a newspaper in the Boston Daily asking for men 75 and older who would be willing to go on a week's vacation, all expenses paid. A group of volunteers was assembled, placed in a van, and whisked off to a luxurious retreat on 10 acres of secluded, beautiful woodland in the New England countryside. Now, when they arrived at this setting, the men were met with a duplicate of daily life as it existed 20 years earlier. Instead of magazines from 1979, which was when this experiment was done, the reading tables held issues of Life and Saturday Evening Post. Anybody remember those? Anybody old enough to remember those? No, you're too young, obviously. They were from 1959. The radio played music from that year, and group discussions centered on the politics and the celebrities of that era. A taped address from President Eisenhower was played, followed by the film Anatomy of a Murder, which won the Academy Award in 1959. Beside these props, every effort was made to center each person on how he felt, looked, talked, and acted when he was 20 years younger. The group had to speak exclusively in the present tense, as if 1959 were today. And their references to family, friends, jobs could not go beyond that year. Their middle-aged children were still at home or going to college. Their careers were in full swing. Each person had submitted a picture of himself taken 20 years before, and these were used to introduce everyone to the group. While this week of make-believe went on, a control group of men, over 75, also talked about the events of 1959 by using the past tense instead of the present. So Mickey Mantle, Eisenhower, Castro, Marilyn Monroe were allowed to have real futures. The radio played 1979 music, the magazines carried the latest news, and the films were current releases. 1959 music. Before, during, and after the retreat, and here's the interesting part of this, Langer measured each man for signs of aging. For members of the 1959 group, to a remarkable extent, these measurements actually went backward in time over the period of 1 week. The men began to improve in memory and manual dexterity. They were more active and self-sufficient instead of waiting to be helped. They took their food and cleared the tables, carried their own luggage, and helped themselves. Some changes might be expected on anybody enjoying a nice vacation. However, certain traits are definitely considered irreversible signs of aging. Those also started to turn around. Independent judges looked at before and after pictures of the men and rated them 3 years younger in appearance. Hand measurement noted that their fingers had actually lengthened and gained back some flexibility in their joints. The group could sit taller in their chairs, had a stronger hand grip, and could even see and hear better. The control group also exhibited some of these changes to a smaller degree. And in some measurements, such as manual dexterity and finger length, they had increased over the week. So it's a very interesting study, don't you think? Perhaps that one's expectations create one's experience? And can I hear like a big fat amen from somebody, please? Oh, well, thank you. Perhaps acting youthful, doing things that we loved to do in our youth, reignites the flame of enthusiasm, de-ages us. You know, the body is made of atoms, so they say. Atoms and empty space. And, oh, thank you. Something's sticking to the, what do you call that stuff? Thank you. I need to go on a retreat so my mind will come back to youthful. Yeah. The body's made of atoms and empty space. And as is everything, all parts of matter. And if you examine the body with an electronic microscope, which multiplies things 250,000 times, you can actually clearly see that there is nothing but atoms and empty space. There's a very interesting discussion of spontaneous healings The rearrangement of atoms suddenly. There's a Japanese study that is also quoted in this wonderful book, Unconditional Life. They did a study in China, and they wanted to find out what happened when people had a spontaneous healing of cancer. They said that there are sometimes terminally ill patients suddenly would intuit that in spite of all odds, they are going to recover. There is a shift in awareness that cannot even be predicted by the patient or the doctor, but it seems to strike, he says, with the fickleness of lightning. This came via Dr. Yujiro Ikeme, Japan's leading researcher on spontaneous remissions of cancer. He said sometimes the patient's tumor, which is often massive in size, suddenly disappears. And as it does, or just before it does, the patient knows it. At one moment, the patient is subject to uncontrollable mood swings, like any other patient confronting death. All at once, despair gives way, not to hope, but to a calm, almost unearthly knowing. The tumor is going away, becomes a natural belief, just as natural as this cold is going away. The shift in awareness made something happen to the body. Nobody knows how that happens, except that he always observed a shift in awareness. So if we're just made up of atoms and empty space, then the atoms have this capacity to rearrange themselves instantly, evidently. So I think I found these examples very interesting. The body decided to become well. The whole body, all at one time, because of this shift in awareness. So I was asking myself this week, what are the qualities of youthfulness? I asked myself that as I was sitting there feeling kind of old and uninspired. Well, I said the qualities of youthfulness are enthusiasm.
I have it.
I know you do. Vigor, fearlessness, and the willingness to embrace the new. Now, Susan just announced that I had been learning QuickBooks. Those of you who know me know that my son has called me technologically declined. And I admit that the qualities of enthusiasm, vigor, fearlessness, and the embrace of the new have diminished somewhat as I have thought of myself as aging, especially the willingness and ability to embrace the new. I've even called myself an old fuddy-duddy concerning my unwillingness to embrace technology. I'm kind of a fan of Ogden Nash, who is renowned for saying, progress is good, but it's gone on long enough. So I decided to look more deeply into these qualities. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is defined as a deep enjoyment in what you are doing, plus the added element of a goal or a vision that you are working toward. This is a quote from A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. Are you engaged, and this is my question to myself and to you today, are you engaged in something that you feel enthused about? The word enthusiasm comes from the ancient Greek, en and theos, meaning God, and a related word, enthusiazein, which means to be possessed of a God. At the height of creative activity that is fueled by enthusiasm, there will become an enormous intensity and energy behind what you do. Ralph Waldo Emerson is quoted as saying, nothing great has ever been achieved without enthusiasm. So, are we in the midst of feeling enthusiastic? Think about something for a minute that at one time in your life you felt very enthusiastic about. You were filled with energy and creativity and inspiration, and you were moving toward a goal. I used to feel this way when I was studying for certain operatic roles. I was given the role of Carmen, very fabulous role, and I threw myself into it with fabulous enthusiasm and energy, and nothing could scare me off. Even people saying, "Oh my God, this is the hardest role. You're not old enough to do it. You're not experienced enough." I took Spanish dancing lessons with a man from Hollywood, and I learned how to play the castanets. And I listened to every available recording of the role of Carmen as I ran fearlessly into doing that role. I had no idea how hard that was. I had to dance on top of tables. I had to get killed by a tenor. But, nothing could deter me from my goal of singing that fabulous piece of music. And so enthusiasm brings a wave of creative energy. And all you have to do is ride the wave, really. So think of something today. We're all going to think of something about which we could feel enthusiastic if we could get ourselves off the couch, the old age couch, out of the old age recliner, and re-enter life with renewed enthusiasm. Think of something. Ernest Holmes, our founder, once said, "Have enthusiasm and above all, the consciousness of love." Let me ask you a question. And I ask myself this question. What do you love? What do you love that you could allow that love to grow and build into an enthusiasm? Ernest Holmes further said that enthusiasm brings empowerment into what you do. It fills you with the power to do it. So you want to access that eternal quality, that forever youngness, that quality of the eternal. You have to find something about which you could feel and experience enthusiasm. Enthusiasm provokes interest, curiosity. Perhaps it reinvigorates a youthful dream that you never followed up on. A friend of mine, her name was Sandy, very good friend, the lady that invited me to a sitter of this type. And she used to laugh. She said, "I've only invited 2 people to church. They both became ministers." At one time, she had cancer. She was in the last stages of cancer. And she asked me to do a special affirmative prayer treatment for her, which I did. And one of my things that I did in the treatment, in the prayer, was to ask the Infinite Spirit to claim that she could find somebody else that would have a healing impact on her, because I wasn't impartial. I wasn't objective, because she was my best friend. So I had a lot of fear. But what she did was she met somebody else who was a healer, and she experienced a healing. In fact, the cancer went into complete remission, and she was so surprised by this. She was so shocked by this, to come all the way back into vigorous good health. I asked her, I said, "What have you always wanted to do that you never did in life?" She said, "Paint." I said, "You're 65. I never knew this about you. You've always wanted to paint? I'm buying you painting lessons." No, she said, "Don't." I said, "Don't waste my money, because I'm not that wealthy. I am buying you." Don't amen my not wealthiness. No, I'm just kidding. I said, "Get out there and do these art lists. I'm paying for them today, and I expect you to follow up." So she did. All of a sudden, she was filled with enthusiasm. She was painting. Her first painting she sold on the web, multiple prints. The second painting won a prize in an art exhibit. I bought that painting. I mean, it just all of a sudden flowered. And as long as she was doing what she really loved, the cancer stayed away. When she went back to a job that she really didn't love, that was full of stress, it came back. I wrote a song about it, big surprise, called "Don't Let Your Music Die Within You and Never Get Sung." And one of the lines was, "Don't wait to paint until you grow old. Don't let your stories go untold. Don't wait to paint until you grow old. Don't let your music die within you and never get sung." I was inspired by her life. So when you are involved with what you love, when you are really deeply involved doing with what you love, time disappears. Have you ever noticed that? Time it just flies by because you are completely, deeply one with the present moment. And you feel the vitality of life flowing through you. So the second quality I said was vigor. Enthusiasm, vigor. Vigor is that energy that just fills you. Eckhart Tolle encourages us to see and feel ourselves being an opening through which the energy flows from the unmanifested source of all being. That it flows through you for the benefit of all. So he's not talking about go out there and try and get enthused about feeding your ego, being famous, rich, or what. He's talking about become a channel through which the energy of the divine can flow through you and somehow benefit everybody with whom you come into contact. He says, once your enthusiasm is reignited, so will your energy be. It will require you to move forward toward your unmanifested vision yet, toward the realization of your vision. There was a person in the congregation, I asked her permission to use her as an example. Carol Greening. Where are you, Carol? Yeah. I remember Carol had a vision of a new kitchen. We were in my Clear Your Clutter class, and we had asked the students to visualize a place in their house that was cluttered, and to visualize the transformed form of that. If it was uncluttered, and if it was beautified and cleared, what would it look like? Well, Carol got enthused. She became majorly enthused. She cut out pictures of her ideal kitchen, and she set to work on realizing this. It took a lot of patience. It took a lot of vigor, but the energy came from her enthusiasm, and it carried her forward to the realization of her vision. And she was so excited. She was so enthused throughout the entire class, and it was realized her perfect kitchen. So, is that a benefit to all? Sure, because she was happy. Does the world need another sad person? And they all said together, no. Does the world need another depressed person, another frustrated person, another person who's lost all hope or enthusiasm for life? It does not. It needs enthusiastic, goal-oriented, vision-inspired people. And Carol was certainly that. She inspired our whole class. It was wonderful. Now, it's a kitchen, so you don't think of that as a big blessing to the world. But what was a blessing to the world was her enthusiasm, was her willingness to move forward, even in certain conditions that seemed really impossible, that seemed to block her. She was not going to be blocked. That enthusiasm, that vigor, that fearlessness. Oh, that's the third. That's the third quality of youthfulness. Enthusiasm, vigor, and fearlessness. Have you ever noticed a kid doing tricks on a skateboard? Oh my God. They think they're eternal, don't they? They think that they're immortal, that nothing's going to happen to them. Yeah, they're fearless. Emerson had a little thing that he said, Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said he was listening to a young man spout his opinions in a place one time, and he said he had the fearlessness of a boy who is assured of his dinner. There's a fearlessness to youth. They don't even think about what if this should happen, that should happen. They don't have the experience to realize the danger. So three qualities: enthusiasm, it fills you with vigor and fearlessness. You just move forward toward the goal. It didn't seem very practical for a girl from, Huntington Beach, California, that never had any experience in classical music to learn a 3.5-hour opera in French by a certain date. Yeah, I didn't speak French, but I was so filled with enthusiasm. And I just ate it up with a spoon. I know, Barry is smirking because whenever possible, I will launch into a L'amore maggiore delle. And he goes, oh my God, French. Jesus even said, all the great sages said, if you believe it, you will receive it. He said, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be so. There's two tenses there, present tense and future tense. Believe that you have it right now, and it will be so. That's the foundation of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm fills you with divine energy and causes you to move forward fearlessly. You have, and then the ability and willingness to embrace the new. Well, sometimes necessity is the mother of willingness. When Susan said she'd be out for a month, I went, but who's going to do the finances? Because I'm, a teacher, a singer, a songwriter, a minister. I'm not a computer person, and I'm not a finance person. She said, you, and I will teach you, and you will learn. And so it is. I knew somebody was going to come. And so I have. Affirm with me this. I'm asking you this morning, no matter what your age, no matter what your level of energy, no matter what your circumstances, to embrace enthusiasm, re-embrace it. The energy of mind, the energy of God already exists within you, and it is up to you to direct it. You are a channel through which it flows. So say this with me. I permit the Spirit to bring increasing joy and enthusiasm into my experience. Okay, I didn't believe you. I permit the Spirit to bring increasing joy and enthusiasm into my experience. I welcome a new influx of inspiration. I am enthusiastic, full of energy, and divine fearlessness. I am forever young. And so you are, and so am I.